Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Runaways YouTube channel. Today we're doing a video in a series to help prepare you for your next ProQuest. So the hero that video is going to be about is going to be Bravo Showstopper. And Bravo Showstopper is one of the original 4 Welcome to Wraith heroes. So basically a strategy that has been around for quite a long time. One of the reasons why you might want to play Bravo Showstopper is if you really enjoy the consistent Guardian playstyle. Bravo, being a little bit more aggressive than Oldhim, has slightly better matchups into some of Oldhim's counters, such as Dash or Icelander or Dromai. Ones where Oldhim traditionally has kind of a difficult time putting together enough damage. Bravo has a little bit to make up for that. And the primary reason why that is because of Anothos. So Anothos says once per turn it costs 3 resources to attack, and if you have 2 or more cards in your pitch zone that cost 3 or greater, it gets +2 power. So attacking, if you spend 2 cards to attack for 6, it's not that strong. It's the same as if you were blocking with most cards. It doesn't really go above the curve. However, if you're able to find a way to spend your other card that you have to pitch in order to satisfy the Anothos condition, and then Anothos becomes a 1-card 6, then that is a very powerful effect. And part of the reason why Bravo is able to kind of fight through some of the I would say like more defensive setup decks is because of the value that you can get from this weapon. Rest of the equipment suite is pretty straightforward. We have a Crater Fist, Crown of Providence, Iron Wrought Legs, Tectonic Plating. These are just the best armor that you can really be using in their respective slots. I have an Arcanite Skull Cap in here, and then this is primarily to play against the aggro decks like Phi and Bravo. I found that having Arcanite Skull Cap, being able to get 1 more block over the Crown of Providence, can sometimes come in handy, especially when you're trying to block out hit triggers such as Phi when he's threatening Mask of Momentum on Phoenix Flame, or a Snatch from Phi or Briar. Having the extra block actually does quite a lot, and it's not always that the Crown of Providence kind of filtering through your arsenal, protecting you against Command and Conquer, doesn't necessarily really come up in those matchups. Most notably, I have decided to only play 1 Arcane Barrier, which is Null Rune Boots, and I think I would only really play Null Rune Boots into probably into Icelander or Briar. Obviously, I think if you have a lot of Kanos in your local area, it makes sense to play a couple more AB pieces. But right now, this deck is structured in a way that we want to maximize the number of sideboard cards that we have access to, and so you can try to take some cards out and then find some space for Arcane Barrier if you find that's relevant for your local meta. One of the things that I wanted to talk about on this video is how to best use Tectonic Plating. Really, this is a concept that I think if you put into practice is going to make you a better deck builder overall. When you're trying to design what cards you want to include in your deck, you really want to figure out first what your resource curve is going to look like and how it is that you want to be utilizing your resources every turn. So we know that one of the strengths for our deck is to try to pitch 2 cards and maybe attack with Anothos for that value. Tectonic Plating is a way for you to pitch that second card, but then you will have 2 resources left over. And a lot of the things that you want to play with Tectonic Plating is you want to play cards or attacks that go 1 under the multiple of 3, 6, 9, whatever. So you want to play like 2 cost attacks. You want to play 5 cost attacks. If there were any, you would play like an 8 cost attack, for example. Just so that you can best utilize the turns where you want to be making a Seismic Surge and then spending the rest of the resources on the attack that costs 2, 5, 8, etc. And then the other half of the attacks that you want to be playing are ones that go one above the curve. So you want to play 4s, you want to play 7s. And Bravo basically is kind of set up exactly for that, because he has access to a lot of really good 4-cost cards, but most notably, he has access to Crippling Crush. So Crippling Crush as the Bravo specialization costs 7. This is really like what the payoff for playing Tectonic Plating is. And so ideally you want to be kind of mixing up playing Crippling Crush, playing Choke Slams, playing that costs 4, playing Debilitates off of that Seismic Surge, and you want to like really have that Seismic Surge get wasted as few times as possible. I think the way that I have the deck currently set up right now, there's 8 attacks that cost 1 above the curve. I could see that number going up to as high as maybe like around 10. But it's just hard to find a good replacement right now. You can play Mangle, you can play Buckling Blow. Those effects I don't find that powerful, but if they did, I mean, you can maybe play like a third Debilitate, for example. I think one of the things that I'd be looking at in the future, to kind of add into a deck like this, for example, then is if they printed some 4-cost, 7-cost attacks that had pretty good effects, then that would be like a nice include. On the other side, we have for 2 costs, we have Blessing of Deliverance. So Blessing of Deliverance, you really want to kind of be using, you pitch a blue, you play the Blessing of Deliverance, you draw a card, you can make a Seismic Surge, and if you drew a blue card, then you can attack with your Anothos. And Blessing of Deliverance gains you up to 3 life. A lot of you might be kind of facing or struggling into Icelander, who is really built around playing these like 2-card 8s. Blessing of Deliverance offers potential value of a 2-card 10 by gaining you 3 life, providing 1 resource on the next turn with the Seismic Surge, and then being able to attack with the Anothos for 6. So then that becomes 6 damage, 3 life, that's 9, and then potentially 1 resource. So really strong card overall. We have, of course, Command and Conquer. You can do a play where on your turn, a 2-card turn is you make a Seismic Surge and you play Command and Conquer. Command and Conquer right now is best against Fi and Lexi, Azalea, like Rangers. It's also pretty good, I think, against Warriors, being able to shut off their larger turns. But a lot of heroes just play Crown of Providence. So when you're playing into like Briar or even like against Oldhim, who has Crown of Seeds, it's not as easy to get the value from this card. You might feel inclined even to cut it if you think that it's not good enough for matchups that you're gonna face at your local ProQuests. Might save you some money also. The other cards that we have that cost 1 under the curve would be Spinal Crush, which costs 5, so you can pitch 2 blues, make a Seismic Surge, play Spinal Crush. Spinal Crush is pretty is a pretty interesting card. It attacks for 9 and it costs 3 cards to play it, so you're actually not really getting any extra like damage value above going above like blocking. So Spinal Crush is actually a card that I find not too useful when you're just playing against heroes that you trade like 1 action for 1 action. So like when you're playing against Icelander or against Oldhim or Guardian Mirror. But it's best when its hit trigger is really relevant, as well as if your opponent is playing a lot of 2 blocks. So Spinal Crush is really good against Rangers, Ninjas, stuff like that. Against Warriors, I think it's not as powerful because they play with a lot of tech reactions. And so like it not being like at rate unless you can like utilize the Seismic Surge makes Spinal Crush like a little bit awkward to play. So it's like one of the attacks that actually end up cutting out the most. And then finally, I wanted to talk about Zealous Belting. So Zealous Belting is actually the main reason why Bravo is really strong, I think. And Zealous Belting gives you a natural outlet to kind of pitch a card, spend 2 resources, get 5 go again. So 2 cost for 5 go again is basically at rate. You can compare it with, for example, Katsu has Surging Strike, or you have Engulfing Flame Wave. So this is like basically at rate for a go again attack. but you also get the chance to generate the Seismic Surge, so you make an extra resource. And then you can spend your other blue to attack with the Anothos. So then when your Anothos attacks for 6, then you have put together a 3-card 11 damage with the potential of an extra resource on the back end. So potentially like 12 value from playing Zealous Belting into weapon red, or 11 value from going yellow Zealous Belting into weapon. And this is equivalent to playing like a 4 cost go again for all your cards, which is kind of like one of the things that made like Redline Briar so broken. So you're like pairing this with also the ability to have most of the rest of your cards block 3. It's just like very high attacking rate while also having pretty good defensive value on the rest of your cards overall. And so that makes up kind of like the core of the deck. Rest of the cards, the rest of the blues that we pick mostly revolve around being able to enable Rouse the Ancients. So Rouse the Ancients, you need to be able to reveal 13 or more total power. So we're playing all of the blues that have 8 total power. So that's Macho Grande, Cranial Crush, Thunderquake. And then we're also playing Max Disable, so that Disable pairs with any 6 power blue as well. So you can play Rouse the Ancients, show 2 blues, attack with your Anothos, and then maybe Arsenal your last blue card. That kind of a play is actually makes Rouse a little bit awkward because you don't really have the flexibility to Arsenal whatever you want. Unlike Oldhim, who can cycle through his arsenal easily with Crown of Seeds, you only really have like a one go with Crown of Providence. So I think usually in matchups where I think you are attacking a lot more, and then you end up with like a lot of like four card hands, that's when I like having the Crown of Providence, because you might end up having to arsenal like one of these blues that you don't really want to arsenal, and then you play Skull Cap in the matchups where you're going to be blocking more and you're playing more off of like 2 card hands. That's a lot of information to go over. So if you're planning to play Bravo at your ProQuest, it's a good idea to know which heroes your deck is going to be good against and which heroes your deck is going to be at a disadvantage against. I would say that Bravo is really good into decks that are trying to play like an even amount of damage every turn kind of play style, because that's when you can really shine with your Zealous Belting value plays. You can really shine with dominating your attack sometimes and threatening hit triggers. So I actually find Bravo quite good into the Guardian Mirror currently. I think that Bravo struggles a little bit into the all-out aggro decks, at least the way that I currently have it built. There are some cards that you can run that make it a little bit better, but like for example, you could run Crush the Weak against Fi, but I think that Crush the Weak doesn't really hit Briar, and so it's kind of awkward to play Bravo into very aggro dominant metas. I think that Bravo is pretty decent into Dash, into Rangers, into what else? It's pretty decent into like Warriors, like these kind of like mid-range focus decks. I think that Bravo has a good time. And I think into Icelander and Dromai, 2 matchups which are traditionally like pretty difficult for Oldhim. I think Bravo has, I think at least an even chance into them, just because of the amount of go again that you're and attacking value that your deck can put together. And so if those things are what you are in the market for, take a look at maybe playing Bravo at your ProQuests. Let me know in the comments if you guys have any cards that we didn't really feature that you think are good in the Bravo deck. Just let the other people know. And keep an eye out for more ProQuest content. We're going to try to put out a couple more deck techs. I'll have a link for this deck in the description. And thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe.